Is it already being used in decentralized platforms like Blue Sky? And what exactly is it helping us do as a user?
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited for talking about this publicly. It's been so much an obscure academic area of research for a long time. So middleware tries to give users the ability to better control their experience. The two areas that we talk about this really mattering in are content curation, meaning deciding what you're going to see in your feed, and then content moderation, so deciding what you are not going to see in your feed or what you're going to see less of or what might have a label over it. Middleware right now is most visible on Blue Sky because Blue Sky is providing an opportunity for users to go onto the platform and create their own feeds where you can subscribe to something like a topic where you say, you know what, I really want to follow a feed about my favorite sports team. I really want to follow a feed about like gardening, books, you name it. Somebody's created that feed and they've curated the people in it. And you can kind of add a little emoji to a post that indicates that you want it to show up in the feed. It's just a really interesting way to get more granular and have more control. And on the flip side, you can do the same thing with labeling. If there's certain people that you don't want to see content from, if there's certain classes of content that you just don't want to see, you can subscribe to a labeler, and that labeler will label content and take it out of your feed or hide it from you. So it's a really interesting opportunity to go there and to have this much more modular kind of create your own experience.
Renee, this sounds like something that would have a fair amount of appeal for users who've been frustrated by their experiences, especially in the last year or so in some of the major platforms. But there does seem to be a catch, and that is you need interoperability and you need the buy-in of those platforms. And the paper even makes note of that. How do you get past that hurdle?
Well, one of the reasons why we did the paper now is arguing that the adoption on platforms like Blue Sky or even platforms like Mastodon, which preceded Blue Sky, this protocol-based social media, provide an opportunity to experience it without trying to prevail upon the giants to do it themselves. There have been papers written about middleware in the past. Frank Fukuyama at Stanford wrote one in 2019 arguing that this would actually be a really effective tool to reduce centralized platform power, right? To devolve more power down to the user. I think you are seeing signs that platforms want to do that. You're seeing Elon Musk talk about giving users more control over the feed. You're seeing Mark Zuckerberg make some pretty remarkable pendulum swings in particular directions. That's alienating a large part of the user base. Saying like, hey, actually here you can control it yourself, I think is something you're going to see from them. They're going to start to try to opt in small ways and give users small opportunities. But otherwise, you're absolutely right. It is very much at the at the pleasure of the platforms that such a thing can exist when dealing with one of the large centralized giants.
And we've seen it at some of those centralized giants that moderation has been a labor-intensive endeavor. How would middleware not suffer from the same sort of challenge? And who would do the heavy lifting?
This is where I think the trade-offs actually are, obviously. We're starting to see people in the community who are doing this as almost a labor of love for their community. It's very much like, hey, I, as a member of this community, maybe a marginalized community, don't want to see content from these people who I think are likely to harass me. And so you're seeing labelers exist to meet a very particular niche need. What we write about in the paper, though, is that ultimately you do have to create some sort of economic means by which it's not just a volunteer labor of love in order for it to scale in any material way. So we tried to present as balanced a view as possible. Here is a vision for what's possible in the world. Here are the challenges and the ways that we need to get past it. But I think, again, as you're noting, you're seeing a moment where people are fleeing, people fled X, I should say, on the left because they didn't like Elon's changes to moderation and the vibes that it created. People had previously fled to Parler and Truth Social when they were on the right and didn't like certain, dynamics. So I think that you're starting to see users begin to realize that they don't have to commit to one site. And this is where I think there's a real interesting opportunity moment.